Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. It is a pleasure to have you here today. So you noble ones have asked me to speak about the Warmonger, and here I am. Very interesting character. It really got me back into For Honor, I've got to admit. And I have to say, just start off before talking about the gear and of course her wonderfully looking flamberge and armor, which we will cover bit by bit. I'd like to mention that today we're going to see, generally speaking, sort of low level gear, because I've only got like reputation 1, but at least I got the first 20 levels done, and I plan on keep on playing with her. So as far as high level gear, we'll have to wait a little bit on that, but in the meantime I wanted to get this video out, so we're going to look at what I could get, and we'll discuss about the historical accuracy and realism behind this character. Would she function on a battlefield? Okay, let's jump right into it and let's have a look at the gear for the Warmonger. I've got I've got 3 loadouts here prepared for us, so let's start with the basic one here. First of all, I'd like to start from the breastplate, and I'm really happy with what they have done with the breastplate, because they got quite a lot of things right. Not perfect, and I will mention a few things that they didn't get right, but first of all, I'm really happy with the fact that they did not go for the typical fantasy trope of boob plates. I mean, I'm so happy with that. The breastplate looks just like the breastplate for a man, even though she's a woman, and that's exactly how it would be. Boob plates make absolutely zero sense. They're stupid, they just wouldn't work, and they don't need to be there. So in this case, I'm happy, because when I first heard that she was going to be gender locked, I was kind of afraid that they would go that way, but they didn't. And another thing I like about this breastplate is the fact that it's rather short, and oftentimes with medieval video games, movies, and also LARP armor, you see that the breastplate is always wrongly shaped, meaning that it's too long and it reaches basically the hips, it reaches the belt of your modern day jeans. But real breastplates, they would taper, first of all, basically reach your waistline a little bit, slightly above the navel, and that's because you need to be able to bend, you need to be able to move, and it's metal we're talking about. And this one seems to be short enough, and it looks tailored. It looks like it's something that was made for her, and I appreciate that. One thing that they did get wrong, which they always do unfortunately, is the fact that it's not globular. It's flat, and instead real breastplates in medieval period, they would look globular, because by making them that way they would encourage weapons to glance off, whereas in this case, it being flat, it would just get the entirety of the force generated by a weapon hitting it. And that's not good, of course. But apart from that, which they always get wrong anyways, I think I'm pretty happy with the design of the breastplate. And generally speaking, if we look at the Warmonger, she looks late 16th century. And not everything, but I'm talking about her helmet, her breastplate, her backplate, a little bit her shoulder plates. I mean, her arms and legs in this case, there's too much mail going on there to be, and even not. If you look there, she's just covered by this sort of leather apron, and I don't know if those are iron plates, in which case it could be some sort of coat plates, poor man's coat of plates. It looks relatively 16th century-ish, or inspired, if you will. But I'll get back to the limbs in a minute. But let's move on to the helmet. One thing I can say is that I like, generally speaking, how the helmets look. They have, particularly the basic one, looks very much like one of those. It has vibes of the late Renaissance in Italy, the heroic sort of armor, which incorporates late medieval technology with some reminiscence and artistic values of the classical period, which I see here, particularly in the ocularia. I like the pointy shape of it, but one problem I have with all helmets so far, and keep in mind I've only got reputation 1, so of course I'm talking about low level gear for now, but one thing I've noticed that if you look at the sides and the back, both in this loadout, this one here as well, and this third one here, you will see there is one constant design flaw, and that's the sides and the back. So the temporal bone and the occipital bone are exposed, and the same I can say about the muscles on the sides of the neck. Actually here, the muscles on the side of the neck at least are protected by this male gorget, but here they are not. So someone with a dagger could easily stab in your throat, it could cut the muscles on the sides of your neck, the sternocleidomastoid muscles, and kill you. So, you know, and particularly with this one here, I mean, look at this, it's completely exposed, and that's weird, because the only thing you would have needed to do for the design of your helmets, at least the back part of your helmet, was to follow naturally and ergonomically the shape of your head. But if you did not want to go that way, and if you really wanted helmets that glared out like this one here, more similarly to a sort of sallet, I suppose, then at least put something else, put more mail, but you need to protect. The front here looks like an armet. And I love that. I think it looks great. Even the eye slits, the ocularia, they are thin. They look like they're really going to protect you. So that looks good, and I love it. The front of this helmet, the visor looks good as well. It looks like one of those 16th century tournament helmets. Very nice. But this massive gap that you see there, perfect for any thin rondella blade or dagger to go through. I just don't get it. And the back here is segmented, which is cool. I mean, some German salads, they would have very long segmented tails. It's kind of weird, the design. I would definitely reconsider that, but apart from that, I think the helmets look pretty cool. Moving on to the shoulder plates. Now, one thing I notice with video games oftentimes is the fact that the shoulder plates, whether they be pauldrons or spolders, they look magnetically attached. You cannot see anything, like no pointing, and in the case of these ones here, I think they're a little too low. I would have attached them further up to grant a bit more protection, to make full use of the sword breakers she's got there, these pointy parts. But if you look at this one here, this set at least, I'm very content with it because it's asymmetrical in the right way. And oftentimes, I mean, we do know the medieval armor, particularly in the northern Italian style, Milanese style, would choose asymmetrical, relatively large pauldrons, particularly if compared to other styles like the English style, the German style. But the asymmetry needs to be logical. Left side bigger, right side smaller, because for a right-handed man, or woman in this case, it makes sense when you fight and you assume you're fighting stance, you will have the left side in front. So that's going to become your defense side, and you want a big pauldron there because that's probably where you're going to be hit most of the time by a right-handed opponent. But your right hand, you can get away with less metal, so it will be more nimble and you will be able to operate and wield your weapon better. And that's why it's good. Oftentimes in video games they do this asymmetry, but they don't get it right. They get the right pauldron big for the right-handed person, and it's kind of weird. But in this case, I think they look good. They are fantasy, of course. They look fantasy, but they look really good. Very regal. And that's one royal, I mean, sorry. And that's one of the things I like about this character. It's very much of a mix between a noble looking knight and a dark knight, particularly if you look at these steel claws she's got on the right hand, which were an interesting design choice to at least differentiate her from the other longsword wielding character, which is the Warden, because otherwise I think they might have looked a bit too similar. It's kind of cool that she uses that. She takes advantage of anything on the field, and in this specific set you can see that she's using mail to protect the lower part and the throat. I don't mind the throat protection with mail. I would have preferred a bever. Perhaps she will get a bever in the future, a full metal bever, but that's still okay. The side plates in this set here, one problem I have with them is the fact that I would have rather they chose an actual fold with tassets. I understand wanting to leave the protection of the center there with mail because you want to be able to mount your mount comfortably. Some medieval knights did that, but I think they kind of overdid it here, and it's very, very wide. But if we look at the legs, that's the set that I prefer so far, because she's got full plate legs and they look really good. I think they should have gone for fully encasing greaves back down there, but then again, I mean, if that's what she likes, that's what she likes, I suppose. But at least the upper part, I think they are cut out a bit too short. You don't have to have fully enclosing ones. Fewer people did, some did, but few people did. Leaving some part of the back of your thighs open, it's fine, but this is a bit too much. But generally speaking, I want to say I'm very happy with her full plate legs, and in fact, if you compare them with the basic set, I was kind of scared at first that all she got was demi greaves, because this is pretty poor lower body protection. I mean, she's only relying on that sort of leather apron there to protect most of her legs, and it's kind of a mismatch if you look at the top, in which instead is heavily protected with plate. And I understand that this is For Honor, it's a different reality, and even makes sense with the lore of the game, because I mean, 1,000 Years War, they are basically starving, they're having lots of problems, they have to make do with what they have. But I'm really happy that as you level up, you can get better protection and full plate protection for the legs, and I hope that you can for the limbs, for the arms as well. In this case, again, we've got a bit of mail, but again, she's using this studded leather apron, and I don't know what the studs are there to do. Definitely are not there for protection purposes, because I mean, if you're unlucky and you stub her and you end up hitting exactly and precisely the center of one of those metal studs, they're just going to redirect your blade and the tip of your blade into the leather gaps. And so at the end of the day, they're not doing anything in terms of protection. Maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe they signify something, maybe they're just there for decoration, I don't know. But let's have a look at this. Both the legs, in this case, extremely decorated, and I like them. I think they look really good. I don't know how they're suspended, I don't know how they work. They look like, I mean, she's got some straps over there, so I suppose they open somehow. The exceptional decoration work looks a little odd to my eyes, not because it wouldn't be sensible, but simply because if we look at even very, very fluted armor, like the Gothic German armor, which had fluting all over the place for not only for decoration and style, but also for reinforcing and strengthening purposes, they never really fluted the greaves. That's the only part that don't flute and they don't decorate in the in even highly decorated armor. So that's why they look a little odd. But again, it doesn't mean that couldn't be done. It's cool. But let's have a look at the breastplate. The breastplate segmented is a different option. Now, I think it looks exceptionally good. It's really good. I prefer the full one. I prefer the other one, solid breastplate. But one problem I have with this is that you can see it's not suited for her. It's not tailored for her. Look at the sides. Massive, massive gaps. And she doesn't even have mail underneath them. Now, I understand maybe she looted it from someone else who was smaller than her. Although, again, on a battlefield with predominantly men, it's kind of weird, but I suppose that could happen. But it just makes it non-functional. So I wish they didn't. I wish they didn't go with that, and they did get it to fit, because to me it looks kind of stupid also, because you're not really gaining much with the fact that it's segmented. It's not like it's a brigandine that gives you a bit more mobility, at least. So I think it would just be better to have a solid shell-like full plate harness instead. Although again, it looks pretty good. I have to admit that. So if there was some magic involved, I'd be like, yeah, who cares? You know, it's magical, so it protects it. It compensates for its design flaws. But this one, it kind of doesn't. Okay, now let's have a look at the sword. So she's got this flamberge. It's a very interesting choice, and I am very happy to see that. Now, clearly, the very first sword and the very first blade that we get doesn't have many waves in it, and I'm sure that high level gear instead will. We might even end up getting, and I'm sure we will, a fully wavy blade. Which I think is going to be great, and I think it's a great choice. I mean, if she had started right off the bat with a fully wavy sword, it would have been a little strange, because a sword like that, a blade like that, would be extremely difficult to produce and to look after, and therefore it would be very expensive. So it makes sense that the higher level gear is the one which has the full flamberge sort of wavy blade. So I like that design, I like that choice. Also, this is interesting because a flamberge is a sort of blade that is very optimized towards cutting. It's a very, very good cutter because of the shape. And we do have examples in history, in Europe, but also in Asia. And we see that this was done with shorter blades, with medium length blades, all the way up to great swords, which are of course the most famous ones that we normally see in video games. So far, I think the blade looks good. Oh, she's got this long sword, I would say. I wouldn't really classify this as a great sword, but it's a nice long sword. It looks good. So far, as always, I am happy with the choice. I think it looks good. I think it's great that we've got a flamberge, and I'm really looking forward to see how the high-level gear and high-level blades are going to look. A flamberge blade, a wavy blade, would be a better cutter because of, generally speaking, blade geometry, and my friend Matt Easton at Scholar Gladiatorium made a couple of videos about it, and he explains it a lot better than I ever could, so I strongly suggest you to go check out those videos. But as he explains, it's just the nature of the geometry of the blade in this case that creates so many points where the blade gets advantages in cutting because of the shape of it, that the moment you perform any type of cuts, whether it be chopping, whether it be a slicing motion with draw cut or push cut, you will get a different but in a way similar effect to what you get with serrated knives, that, as you know, cut better when you try and cut steak with. So the moment you're trying to cut fleshy targets, a blade like this would be a very, very well optimized cutter. But enough about that. Let's have a look, a little bit of a gameplay here. That's me trying to I don't know her combos, I haven't watched tutorials about it, so this is just my first attempt at seeing what I can do with this character. Let's have a look at it, and then I'll talk to you later again. Alright, noble ones, well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you are not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.